Okay, so this is the demo of how to run your notebooks from dataplatform.cloud.ibm.com on the cloud against the Spark engines of watsonx.data also deployed on cloud. So here in my cloud.ibm.com account, I have a couple of watsonx.data instances. This is one with instance ID starting with CD. And there's another instance that I also have, which is a different one, starting with 4006B. So the difference between these two are one is right now in account scoped, and the other one is the instance scoped at the moment. So if you see here, there are a couple of Spark engines against this Watsonx data instance. So I have a Spark 3.4 and a Spark 4.0 running. And I also have an Iceberg catalog attached to it, which is attached to an IBM cost storage. So now against this, if you look at this Iceberg catalog, if you see the pattern of the thrift and the rest endpoint, you can make out that it is from an instance scoped watsonx data instance. So you see the pattern ending in a node port, and you have a like lakehouse.appdomain.cloud in this manner. Whereas for the other one, which is a way forward for all of the instances upcoming, we will have an account scoped watsonx data instance. So in this case, if you see the catalog, the thrift endpoint is slightly different. You will see that it is having the cloud.ibm.com host name, and there is a change in the thrift endpoint. It starts with HTTPS. The earlier one was thrift protocol. And also the REST endpoint, you see that it is a common one that you have for a particular region. So this one is again the account scoped watsonx data instances. So we have two different kinds of watsonx data instances, and they both have the catalog. And in this catalog, um, you also find that in this Spark engine, there are certain configurations that are predefined for you when you create the catalog. So with respect to the catalog, okay, so this is my Iceberg catalog. So you find that there are some default configurations, including the Metastore URI that is set up for you. So it's the thrift this is a thrift endpoint, which is of HTTPS protocol, and it also takes now the account ID and the catalog name as query param. So this is done priority. This is just for information. And you also find that some of the other the warehouse configuration is all set up for you. Similarly, you find that this transport mode is set to HTTP for the thrift protocol as opposed to the binary earlier. And in the similar manner for the storage associated with the catalog, you see that there is this predefined Watson AWS v4 signer, which is the DAS way of authorization to the object storage so that you don't have to set the credentials every time you run an application or a job. So all of that is predefined for you now. And if you look at the catalog, there are already some schemas that I have created prior, and the schemas have some tables, and some of these sample data is already present for you. So now this is a setup we have. Now, next I go into dataplatform.cloudibm.com in the same account, and I can go to the menu and click on the projects and view all projects. And there are a few projects that is already there for me that I've created. Now, against this specific project, I get into it and I can go to the assets tab. And here I can go and create a notebook where I want to run, say, my PySpark application that has Spark SQL that talks to the metadata service to fetch the tables and select from the tables and so on. So if I click on what kind of runtime that I want it to run, the notebook to be run against, there are a few choices for me. The plain Python, R, and so on. And what I'm interested is in the Spark. And I find that there are some default Spark configurations that come by default with the data platform cloudibm.com. But the future, the way forward is to use the Spark engine in watsonx data. So I'm not finding that here. So in order to do that, let me click on the cancel I go back to the Manage tab of this project. So I go here and I click on the templates and I see the same templates that I saw in my drop down earlier. And none of these is the Spark that is there in watsonx data. So I click on the new template and I click on Spark here. And here the system automatically figures out what are all the available Spark engines in the account. So here I can see that there is the Spark engine that I create that I showed earlier, the 4.0 Spark from one instance, and the other one is the Spark instance 3.5 from my account scoped watsonx data. So I pick up that one and let me give it some demo, some name, txt test one, and then I can go ahead and create that. Sorry, this should be the template. So let me call it Spark instance scope, or let me call it, okay, this is 3.5. Okay. Okay, so just some name so that I can distinguish it later. So I create the template. Now the template is created. Now I go back to creating the notebook. Click on notebooks, work with notebook. And here now I see the option for this template that I just created. So any runtime or job or any application that run against this notebook will be run against the Spark that is defined from this template. So I give it a name um, and I go ahead and create it. And it takes a few seconds to go ahead and create the notebook, bring up the runtime and bring up the kernel. And once that comes up, we have some sample code that you can just execute it. From here, from the environment tab, you can actually see what template this is being run against. And if you need to change, you can do that easily from here. So it takes a while for the kernel to initialize and come up. And once this kernel is up and it's idle and ready to accept your code, then this button will clear up and you will see you can run your code in that. So let me quickly switch to the notebook where I have the commands created prior. And here I have this sample code which initializes the configurations. Now, please note that the only configurations that I need to set up additionally to what is already there in the configurations for the engine, because all of the metastore URI and the credential provider, all of that is already set up for me. So the configuration that the user has to set up is very minimal. So in this case, I only need to set up the metastore username and password and the API key, which works with the DAS based storage. So with the watsonx credential provider. So I just need to set up these two. So here I've set up, this is my email ID and this is my API key. And for the for this particular parameter, the watsonx.data API key, I have the base64 encoded version of this IBM LH API key underscore my email ID, and then the same API key that I've created from the platform.cloud.ibm.com. So once I create it this way, now I just need to execute the show catalogs, and then although the catalog doesn't show up over here, I can execute all the standard SQL, show schemas, show tables, and finally select start. And it shows the same data, the 4 rows that I had earlier in this. So these are the same rows that I saw earlier, and I can see that the from the notebook as well. So in the same way, there are more samples that is there in the blog, which contains how you whether it is the account scoped what's next data or the instance scoped what's next data, you will find that the and whether to connect to Thrift or to the Iceberg REST interface, all of those samples are in the Medium blog, and we'll see that over there as well. All right, thank you.